Welcome again to another edition of State Representative Roger Bruce and his team working to try to make sure that you are informed about all of the issues that take place here at the Capitol during this legislative session. Today we're going to kind of focus on issues related to small business enterprise, trying to make sure that we really talk about House Bill 712, which tries to equalize the procurement process here at the Capitol. I'm going to let our guests today introduce themselves, and then we'll get right into the conversation.
Rodney Littles.
Tiffany Stewart-Stanley.
And I'm Bill Cannon with the Georgia Black Constructors Association.
Okay, as you guys know, I dropped the legislation this week for House Bill 712. And I say I dropped it. Actually, I pre-filed it before the session started, but the process requires that you file it again once the session starts. It will be assigned to committee tomorrow, and then we'll know what the next steps are. But in the meantime, there's been all kinds of discussion about it already as a result of the pre-filing of it. And why don't we tell our listeners what you're hearing, the feedback that you're getting about it now, and anything that you'd like to say about it.
Sure. Well, Roger, we really appreciate you taking the lead on this. We know your background with Maynard Jackson as mayor and his efforts to improve purchasing practices and inclusion of minority firms in government purchasing.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole concern from our community basically is we pay taxes. The state budget goes to spending a lot of money on both goods and services and construction. And quite frankly, there's a big disparity between what is spent with those of the minority community in particular.
Yeah.
African-American-owned businesses specifically.
Talk specifically, because I know you had a significant role in helping to put the legislation together.
Okay.
And, people get confused about what the bill is and what the bill isn't.
Right.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
Obviously, it does not create the disparity that we heard about in a meet we
Right.
just left,
Right.
where the argument was that if we do this, that we're taking business away from the majority.
Right.
And in fact, that I think her statement was that the balance has shifted the other direction.
Oh.
And did I not hear that earlier?
Yes. In
And,
DOT.
and not even close to
Correct.
that.
No.
So talk a little bit about what the bill is and what it isn't from your perspective.
Okay, well, what the bill would do is create the Division of Supply Diversity in the Office of Administrative Services. The idea would be to conduct a disparity study of all state agencies to determine whether there's a disparity in purchasing with minority and women-owned firms. The State Department of Transportation has just completed their most recent study, but the one that was completed in 2012 clearly indicated that particularly African-American firms are underutilized based upon their availability in the marketplace. The United States Supreme Court in 1989 heard a case, the city of Richmond versus Croson Company, in which the outcome of that lawsuit, it was determined that a legal predicate has to be established in order to create goals.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Georgia DOT program has federal mandates, so they
Right.
have to adhere to those goals. However, the state does not. So all the purchasing beyond the federal dollars that come into DOT do not come under the scrutiny of a disparity program.
Right.
So we would like to see a disparity study done in order to determine where and if there is a disparity in other state agencies for contracting for goods, services, and commodities.
And create the balance. You just sat through a meeting a moment ago where one of the representatives, we don't have to mention the name, but one of the representatives had an opinion about this. What was your reaction to what she said?
I felt it was very shocking because I think if you look at the numbers, if you look at the study that was done between 2009 and 2011, you'll see that something along the lines of 2.5% of those contracts with the Georgia Department of Transportation went to African Americans. So I don't understand, unless there's some data that we're missing or I'm missing, where the numbers can come from where you can say that minority-owned businesses or women-owned businesses are taking contracts and money away from white male businesses. I mean, I just think the numbers are not there.
And so you heard the same thing I heard.
Yes, I heard the same thing too. It was shocking.
Yeah, it shocked me too, because I've never heard that statistic before, that it was out of balance in the other direction. You sat through that meeting too, didn't you?
Yes, and I heard just what you heard. However, I wasn't shocked. I'm accustomed to it after all these years of trying to work with you and others on making a difference. I do understand that everyone sees it from their own perspective. The important number to recognize on that last study that Rodney mentioned is that there was an increase in the definition of women business enterprise is defined as white women-owned business enterprise. Okay. And when you add the percentage attributed to white women-owned business to white male-owned business, it's 96% of all the dollars spent.
You know, one of the things that I was trying to bring up at that other meeting as well was the idea that I was trying to find a distinction between businesses that are owned by minorities and women versus the person that owns the company having to have the skill set. In other words, are we trying to drive the money or a percentage of the money into businesses owned by women and minorities versus that person having to have the skill? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Roger. In the industry, we call it men in skirts. Okay.
Okay.
In a lot of states, the goals the composition to be satisfied as a minority women-owned business is 51% ownership. According to your bill, it requires a demonstration of 70% ownership to be a woman-owned or minority-owned business.
Right.
And quite a few minority-owned businesses, particularly African-American, are 100% owned.
Right.
So there's no delusion at all.
Exactly.
So yes, what has happened, and I think Bill pointed out very aptly, the percentage of work at DOT that was going to women, white-owned businesses was higher than their availability in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. So they don't have a disparity.
Okay, talk a little bit too, either one of you, around the types of, because when we say DOT and jobs, people tend to think strictly building roads. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole lot more to it than just building roads. And just, I was watching them lay out sidewalks in my neighborhood, and most people think that all that's involved is, you go dig up the ground and you throw some concrete down there and you smooth it out. But there's a whole lot of other things that go in there. It's piping, it's all kinds of things that happen just to make a walkway. Mm-hmm. So all of those other jobs, talk a little bit about all the other jobs so that people who are looking at this would have some sense for, the kinds of things that they might be able to go to DOT with in terms of their job or their company. Correct. Because it's not just building roads.
The hard work, right. Well, there's a whole area of professional services. There's a design aspect before you even get into going into the ground. Right. So the soft services in engineering and architecture are very, very prevalent, and they're needed way before you get to the part of actually digging up the ground. Mm-hmm. Also, the idea of the bill, HB 712, is to look at purchasing state agencies in goods, commodities, and other non-construction related services. It's not just construction related services. So we would be looking at making an impact in local communities in various industries, not just in construction. Right,
and we're talking about, things might be as simple as office supplies. Correct. It could be cleaning the buildings. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to clean the buildings and to provide, goods and services. So we just want to make sure that as people, if you start a business, if you have a business, that you look at this in the context of all of the different things that the state purchases. And it's not, like you said, it's not just construction, there's all kinds of things. And some of them are long-term repeat contracts. Some of them are, one-shot deals, but the point is that you really need to pay attention to all of the aspects of business and see whether or not you can offer your goods and services to the state. There was a gentleman there who happened to be from the DOT that talked earlier, and because he was mentioning that there's that they're having difficulty finding vendors for all of the different things. And I want to make sure that people, if you have a question about this, that you contact my office, because we want to help people who want to do business with the state. So you can reach me at through my website, rogerbruce.net, or you can just call down to the office here at the Capitol. What other, there were some other things that you dealt with today. Why don't we talk a little bit about that? I know one of the big issues that we are dealing with right now is cannabis oil and how this is going to impact our communities. And, I'm on record as saying that I'm real hesitant about it because the cannabis oil comes from the marijuana plant. And if they extract the oil out of it, I still want to know what they're going to do with the rest of it. What happens to the rest of it? How is it disposed of? Is somebody going to be smoking it? I don't know. And I'm, while I want to see these children get help for the issues that they may be having, I'm not sure that the medical profession has said that this is the right cure. Excuse me. And in fact, what I'm hearing from some doctors is that they're concerned that because they don't know how this stuff is going to be grown, what kind of things people are going to be putting in it to preserve it or whatever the case may be, and if they prescribe some kind of other medication for another purpose, how the two interact with each other, and are they going to end up hurting somebody, killing somebody as a result of not knowing what's really in this stuff. And so what did you hear this morning? What was your...
Well, at the hearing today, Representative Alan Peake, he spoke, and the basis of his speech to the committee was determining how we get the product now to Georgia. I think it was himself and Representative Gravely. They both went and toured the dispensary in Minnesota. And they got to see, they actually had pictures for everyone to see of the dispensary, and it just looked like a normal, a big pharmacy. It was like a big building. They showed where you checked in, where you checked out. They actually went and saw the different, where they grew the marijuana and different things like that. I think he kept stressing the fact that this is not going to be, in someone's backyard. This is going to be an actual dispensary. Is the model that they want to use. And he actually said that they looked at several models, the Colorado model, but the Minnesota model, which is the strictest model, is the one that he would like for Georgia to use. He said that they talked to some law enforcement agencies out in Colorado, and they said that they wish they hadn't have gone as far as they went with the marijuana.
Did they say why?
No, he just said that they wish that they had not gone as far as they
Yeah, because I talked to some of my colleagues out there too, and they're saying that they've got more people now that they appear to be intoxicated off of this stuff constantly, and that it's not controllable. They say it's not in control, and that they are having instances of people having automobile accidents and all kinds of other things that are going on. Because of this. I'm still trying to figure out, because we get a mixture here in Georgia of people saying that we want to legalize this for the purposes of helping these children. But then we also get another group that's mixing the story up saying, well, why not just let it be recreational? It doesn't do anything, long term to anybody, which I question. I said, if it doesn't do anything to you, then why you won't smoke it? It does something, that's why you want the reaction from it. But I guess where I'm trying to go with this is, are we opening the door by allowing this product to be grown here and sold here? Are we opening up the door, and I'm just asking the question, you guys, can chime in. Are we opening up the door to other abuses of this product? And I know I hear all the time, well, what about people drinking? And I'm like, well, because we're doing one bad thing somewhere else, should we do another bad thing because we're doing a bad thing? I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think from what I heard in the hearing, I mean, that some of the legislators had concerns about your same concerns, and they asked, actually, were there any other states who had done the Minnesota model or something very similar to the Minnesota model where there's like a longer result? Because Minnesota passed their law back in 2014 and it went into effect in July of 2015. So there's only been about 6 months of the actual growing the marijuana in the dispensary. So there's like not enough data. There was a doctor from Emory who was there, and she said that there were really no ways to determine, what amount of THC would make someone, I guess, high. And so that's kind of one of the issues with determining, how much marijuana is too much or how much THC or CBC is too much, because there's no way to determine what actually gets you high because it depends on the person, your body weight, your body size. So there's no data right now to really, I guess, to address your concerns.
What do you guys hear?
I guess what I've been following about this in terms of the medical side, and I'm not a doctor by any means, but the oil, I'm not aware of any side effects per se, and that it's administered specifically for the ailment. I think your concerns about the recreational use may have some merit, and we prescribe drugs through doctors now from pharmaceutical companies. I see them advertising on television, and the side effects are worse than some of the ailments they're trying to solve.
Exactly.
So I would be concerned.
That's called full disclosure in case something does happen.
Right. So I would be concerned about what the side effects might be if it was my child. I would want to know a little bit more about the side effects. But as far as the administering it as a medicine, I mean, we do that now through pharmaceutical companies and.
Yeah, but there's a process that you go through to get drugs approved.
Correct.
And this group of people is trying to just go all the way around that process. They don't, for whatever reason, don't want to go through that process.
Right.
And again, I don't want to see. I'd like to help these kids any way we can, but I don't want to create a bigger problem in the process. You got anything you want to say about it?
Well, just
I mean, go ahead. You don't want recreational drugs, do you?
no.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
But I am concerned about the welfare of the children. And obviously there's going to be a lot more discussion and more investigation. But if you're a parent and your child is severely impaired by something that you had no earthly idea what happened to your child.
Right.
When my son was born, he had high blood count and he had several other illnesses. And that terrifies a parent when you have a baby and a young child. At that point, you really want to try whatever can give relief to your child.
That's correct.
And so there is needed some type of balance. Obviously, some more investigation will be appropriate. But we also have to keep these parents and these children in mind as we continue this discussion.
Yeah, and that's what makes it difficult. They've been bringing the kids down here to the Capitol in wheelchairs, and some of these kids have had seizures right here in the building. And I think that's kind of cruel myself, but the reality is that I understand that they need help. But you want to make sure that the help we give them is long-term help and not short-term that leads to a long-term worse problem. And I'm not sure exactly where that balance is. And that's why, me personally, I think that's why we ought to let the doctors and the professionals, go through the process that they go through to evaluate how these medicines impact people and then make recommendations on that basis. And I know that there are people who are saying, well, I don't want my child to have to wait until all of that happens. And I understand that. So I'm not sure exactly what the solution is. I'm just not sure that this is it. And but anyway, any other things that you guys any other topics, anything else that you want to talk about?
Talk about the civil rights agenda?
Yes, for those of you that may not know, the term civil rights was coined by Dr. King.
Silver.
Silver,
Okay.
that during the final stages just before the Civil Rights Act was passed, he realized that there was a need to address economic injustice. And so with that, he said that we got to launch a civil rights movement as the companion to the civil rights movement. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to address now. I'm disappointed that many of his followers didn't pick up the baton that he dropped as he was assassinated almost 50 years ago. And so here we are still trying to follow our leader in picking up that baton and addressing things, especially in our government. It was, and I'll end with this. We talked a good bit about the Department of Transportation, but the only reason that we have that program is because the federal government requires it. DOT does not have its own program. At one time it did, but the board voted it down and eliminated it. But when I was on the commission for the House of Representatives on minority business participation, it showed some substantial problems, and that was followed by Governor Zell Miller's executive order requiring all state agencies to identify what their participation levels were. And it was amazing how low. There was a plethora of zeros, zero participation, 1% participation, 0.5% participation. And even amongst our historically black colleges and universities was very disappointing.
Right.
And so there's a lot of work to be done there, and I believe this bill will not just address the Georgia Department of Transportation. It will address where all of our tax dollars go.
That's
all
correct.
of these different departments that do a lot of different things, including our authorities like Stone Mountain.
Right. Well, and that is the intent of House Bill 712, which is to expand what the DOT has started across all State Department lines. Did you have something else you wanted to say?
No, I think just it's
Did we catch you off guard with that?
No, you didn't catch you off guard, but I just think in reading House Bill 712 and actually just doing some research on it, it just definitely seems like it's something that needs to be passed, and it's something that we need as a female black business owner. I mean, just seeing the disparity it's shocking, and it's just something that needs to be addressed.
Are you finding because I know you've been walking around trying to, drum up support for it. Are you finding any patterns in what's going on?
The only thing that I hear from a few the consistency I see is we're adding another layer of government is a concern, and then the concern about, well, what if you can't find any black businesses, then what do? Then that creates a whole nother issue because now you can't give the contract to a non-minority or women-owned business. So that's, I've explained that's where this disparity study comes in, and then you also have the register. There'll be a register in the bill that will help. You'll have this register of people that you can go to for these types of products or business or whatever you need. So I think if once they read the bill and they get a better understanding of it, I think the more people will support it.
It sounds like you chomping at the bit to say something about that.
Yes. Well, I'm originally from the Northeast, and the problems that I see here are really not much different than the Northeast. The difference is that you have executive level support for a program. It is instituted in law, but those that don't want to follow find ways around it. That's why your 70% minimum is a good idea.
Right.
But the bottom line is there's a sense of privilege and entitlement that majority firms have, particularly in the construction industry, and don't see the need to permit others to participate from the minority community. And so we have what I would call an economic slavery issue, whereby we're being kept down economically because of this prejudice. And we can't hire folks, we can't train them, we can't reduce the dependency on public service programs without having economic growth in our communities.
Right. Well, I've been advocating, for as long as you've known me,
Yes, sir.
to change the message that we give to our children when they come into the world. We have all been probably indoctrinated by our parents with go to school, get a good education, so that you could go beg somebody for a job. They didn't say it that way, but that's what it amounted to.
Yes.
And that's what you did. You went to school, you got the education, you went out, you got a job, you worked and gave that job the best years of your life.
Right.
You know, for the most part, you know, you worked through your late 20s, your 30s, into your 40s, and then the company comes along and says, okay, well, we don't have any use for you anymore.
Right.
So now we got to lay you off because we're going in a different direction, we're doing something, but you've now given away the best years of your life.
That's right.
So I want to change that message. I still want you to go to school. I still want you to get a good education, but I want you to use that to go out and create your own jobs, create your own businesses, create your own opportunities for your own success.
Right.
And that's the message that I think that we have to start pushing people towards.
And last thing I want to say before I pass it over to Bill, recently there was a study done and a report done where there are 100 Americans, white Americans, that control more wealth than the entire African American population in this country. 100 people.
Yeah, there's a TV. If you go on the History Channel, there's a story on there. It's called "The Men Who Built America," and it talks about it was basically 5 guys that had 90% of the wealth in the country back during the Vanderbilts and Rockefellers and all those guys. It was like 5 of them, DuPonts, and but they controlled everything. And monopolies were not illegal back then. You know, they are, supposedly they are now, but you know, we know what reality is. But we just have to figure out how do we take the American dream, so to speak, and allow it to be everybody's dream and not just the dream of a handful of people.
Yeah. That's a very interesting point. But your point about the education process reminds me of my alma mater, Hampton. We have a entrepreneurship program.
Mm-hmm.
You can graduate with an entrepreneurial degree. When that program was first initiated, I guess because it was not thoroughly vetted, when they graduated, those with this degree, they didn't have anywhere to go.
Mm.
They couldn't get a job because they had a degree in entrepreneurship, which says to a business, well, you're just going to use us so that you can start your own business. So we're not going to invest in your creating a business that may compete with ours.
Mm.
So that was something that had to be re-engineered. But what used to happen was our young people went to college, came back to the family business that was already in our community, which is the other part of civil rights, is the African American community reinvesting in the African American community so that that dollar is recycled, so that we can help support our HBCUs like Morehouse, Hampton, and others.
Right. All right, guys, I think that might wrap it up for today. I appreciate you guys coming out and spending the time with us this week. And we're going to come back again next week. We'll talk about the bill. It has been dropped, as I said, now in the House. It'll be assigned to committee tomorrow. We'll know by next week what committee it's in, and we encourage people to come down and support it because I think everybody benefits from it. This is not a, give business to minority company bill. It is, let's get everybody that's involved in this process, that lives in this state, give everybody equal opportunity to participate in the things that the state has to offer. I think that's a better way to put it. So again, thank you for coming out. Look forward to continue working with you guys, and let's make Georgia a better place for everybody.
Amen.